So this next part of the program, we decided to get educators up here so that they can talk from the universities and colleges standpoint, what they are doing, what the challenges are, and then we'll open it up for you guys to ask questions. So I will start with a few questions and then open it up for the whole group to ask questions and contribute. Let me quickly introduce our panelists. And I'm not going to do a full introduction. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. But we have Ken Messner, who is the Dean of the College of Engineering at the University of Texas at El Paso.
Go Miners.
I think there are a lot of miners here. That's the problem. Michelle Shaw, who is the Director of Workforce Development at the Mineral Area College. And Craig Luxbacher, who is the Gregory H. and Lisa S. Boyce Leadership Chair and Executive Director and Head of the School of Mining, Engineering, and Mineral Resources at the University of Arizona. So thank you. I know you guys all have busy schedules. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Hopefully we'll have a lot of fun on this panel. So let's start with brief introductions from each of you, and then if you can succinctly tell us what you're doing in your school, university, college, whatever that is, would be good. So.
Sure. Thanks, Kwame, and thank you for the invitation to be here. Really appreciate it. So I'm Ken Meisner. I've been Dean of the College of Engineering at the University of Texas at El Paso for 3 years and 3 days, not that anybody's counting. I'm coming from a biomedical engineering and optics background. So I had not been very much into the mining area until I got to Swansea University, actually, which was my previous position, where I was a number of positions in Dean of the Faculty of Science and Engineering. And for those of you who don't know, Swansea was copperopolis in the mid-19th century. About 40% of the world's copper flowed through there. So we kind of got to know a little bit about metallurgy and mining there. And then I got to UTEP. And UTEP's story is really interesting. It was formed in 1914 as the State College of Mines and Metallurgy. And it was formed by industry and the community. And it's maintained that link. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And we continued to teach mining and metallurgy up until 1966. In 1966, we won the Men's National Basketball Association title, first team in Texas to do so. And we graduated our last mining engineer. So the university made a decision to stop teaching mining, keep metallurgical engineering. And then 2 years ago actually, we were approached by one of our benefactors who helped us start another department. And we asked what we could do, and he said, we need more mining engineers. And so the university went through a process of, is there a need? Could we do this? Should we do this? And then we ended up, but we really have to do this nationally with our background in mining. And so we're going to be restarting our mining engineering program in fall of 2027, and hope to bring the power of and the numbers, as we'll talk about in a little bit, of Texas behind and start tapping that community for mining. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Okay. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Shore. I'm the Director of Workforce Development at Mineral Area College in Park Hills, Missouri. I know that workforce development can be this all-encompassing term sometimes. It means different things to different companies and institutions and people, but what my team focuses mostly on is incumbent worker training. Not to say that we don't have plenty of students that transfer into the Missouri S&Ts of the world. It's just that's not what my team focuses on. MAC has a super vibrant mining industry. We're in the old lead belt. The viburnum trend is in our service region, so we work with a ton of mining companies in different capacities, but mostly we're working with them to develop short-term customized training programs to train and upskill their employees for those maintenance level roles, technician, production level roles, anything from hydraulics, pneumatics, mechanical drives, rigging, things like that. We also work with Department of Labor grants, specifically focused on expanding and developing apprenticeship in the area. Right now we're working on youth apprenticeship, so getting that younger audience interested in these careers. And then we also work with the Missouri One Star customized training and job retention programs, and these are training grant programs that allow our companies, our mining companies, to offset some of the cost of their training. And MAC works with them to develop their identify the training needs, develop a training plan. We also facilitate the training. We kind of act as that liaison between the state and the organization. So.
Yeah, great.
Hi, I'm Cray Luxbacher, and I lead the School of Mining Engineering and Mineral Resources. And that's a fairly new unit at the University of Arizona, and it's all about coordination, to Anita's talk. The idea is that we really coordinate across all the disciplines that mines need, and we recognize those are a lot of disciplines. It's not just mining engineering. I am a mining engineer, but I coordinate with environmental science, with public health, with business, with geosciences to really produce holistic interdisciplinary solutions and workforce. So we're looking, of course, at using our research projects to educate everybody from the BS student to the PhD. But we also do an extraordinary amount of outreach from the school. We've contacted well over 8,000 K through 12 students in the last year. And we have our teacher program that was mentioned, which is branded See You at the Mine, but we recognize we need to rebrand with South 32's support because Zinc You at the Mine doesn't work quite so well. But we recognize that by working with teachers, we're impacting thousands and thousands of students per teacher that we work with. And so that's been a really exciting program as well. The other thing that we do is we're doing workforce development even at the the hourly level for new miners. So we have an Underground Miner 101 program that just kicked off with Resolution Copper, and what we're doing is helping brand new miners, so people with zero mining experience, understand what major hazards look like underground with week-long training cohorts. And this works very well because it's tough to get people underground at Resolution if you've ever been there. It's a 7,000-foot deep mine, and so just getting down the shaft is difficult in terms of traffic. So that's another program we're developing, and we're really trying to coordinate with our community colleges as well. I'm here in another role, too. I happen to be the chair of the U.S. Mineral Heads. So those are all the mining engineering and quite a few of the metallurgy programs in the United States. Kwame and Mike are very active. And back to coordination, I think we've seen a new day amongst the schools, and we are really trying to coordinate more. We had our first summit a few months ago in Tucson where we got all the heads together. Every school but one was represented. And we really want to respond to industry and to the federal government with one voice and say this is what we need nationally rather than sort of piecemeal attempts to get things done and not reinvent the wheel, as Anita mentioned. So I'm sort of here in two roles in that way.
Okay. Thank you, Cray. So let's start with Michelle on this one. So, of course, we hear about the nationally workforce issues. Everybody's complaining, but in the mining industry, we hear that. From where you sit, what do you think are the reasons and the challenges, and what are some solutions that you are implementing on your own to help address this issue?
So I think we've heard a lot of them already today, but a big one for us is geography. We are a rural community college, and the companies that we service are in rural areas, and the employees that work there are already traveling sometimes an hour and a half or 2 hours to get to the job site. So there's a real hindrance with the training and upskilling of those people. Traveling additional distances just weren't an option. So to help bridge that gap, about 5 or 6 years ago, MAC really started to focus heavily on workforce development related grants that helped us to be able to build a 100,000 square foot technical training facility in Park Hills, Missouri that houses all of our technical training. A lot of those disciplines I already mentioned: engineering, technology, HVAC, welding, things like that. But we also invested heavily in portable training equipment through a company called Amatrol in Indiana. And this has allowed us to be able to take training on site to these companies. Sometimes we joke and say that we should just have a full-time person out at Doe Run. But it's helped us a lot to be able to bridge that gap with that portable training equipment. We also have seen a difference in the way that our companies are hiring. They want to home grow their own. I know that was mentioned earlier. So being able to partner with us on these customized training programs allows them to send employees to us maybe one day a week to really focus on the hands-on stuff. So again, they're able to home grow their own. We have a training consortium down in Cape Girardeau that all came together, and it's not just mining companies, but also manufacturing companies, because a lot of them in those maintenance and technician roles have a lot of the same needs, but they all came together and we developed mechanical and electrical maintenance programs, and so they can send their people to those programs. And one company, even in lieu of a 2-year degree, they're accepting this training program in lieu of that, and it's allowing them to get these promotions and these more coveted, higher paying positions within their company. So, yeah. Oh, next.
Whoever wants to go next.
Will you repeat the question, Kwame? I'm
The
sorry.
question is, what are the challenges? Why are we facing this problem? And what are some of the things you have seen, maybe work in your own institution or in your role, working with all the mining schools? What are some of the solutions you're seeing work?
I mean, I think one of the major challenges still remains perception. And even in Arizona, that's true, where we see mines everywhere we go. People should know a little bit more about mining and technology in Arizona, and we still are struggling with perception of the industry as being old-fashioned or very rigid, or not something where I would fit in. And I think that our outreach efforts are probably going to yield some great strides there, but they're long term. You know, you've really got to start with kindergartners and teaching them about mining and minerals and the technology that goes into developing a mine. I always tell students, if you're interested in autonomy, these are the biggest autonomous projects on the planet. Mines are. But I think that it's a long-term effort. And so I hope to see our outreach efforts really yield. But even in Arizona, we're struggling to attract mining engineers in particular. And then we're struggling to talk an environmental scientist into going into mining, for instance, or a civil engineer. And I say, well, you can work at a wastewater treatment plant, or you can have a footprint that's over 100,000 acres where you're solving all kinds of really interesting water problems. But it doesn't appeal because of what people have seen. So I think outreach by industry and universities is really, really important, and also partnering across the whole educational enterprise to help people win these really high-paying jobs with great benefits that afford a wonderful quality of life. And then I think, South 32's approach to being much more flexible in how people work at mines is going to help a lot, especially in Arizona. People will see those as jobs where you can have the lifestyle you want and still work in mining. I think all of those things will be very helpful.
Thank you. Ken?
No, thanks. And I want to amplify a number of the points here. I think coordination is important. Craig, what you mentioned right at the end there, the vertical integration of education is really important. And it's something that El Paso has done kind of in an interesting way. For those of you who don't know and haven't been to El Paso, we're about as isolated as it gets. We are way away from everything, which makes us a wonderful petri dish for doing some experiments. So there's something called the collaborative there we have one university, UTEP, one community college, El Paso Community Colleges, and about 6 independent school districts that formed the collaborative. It sounds almost Borg-like, but we formed the collaborative about 30 years ago with the idea of, okay, how do we look at strategically getting our children more interested in education and pushing up the educational portion or credentials of the community. And we've done so over the last 30 years. We are economically underdeveloped. I mean, UTEP, I've got about 30% of my students are coming from households making less than $20,000 a year. So this is an economically underdeveloped area. Yet, we're the second most educated city in Texas if you take some education post-high school. And that's been some of this vertical integration between the community colleges, the university, or the community college, university, and the school districts. And I think we can see big benefits from that. And we've got some some lessons learned from the aerospace industry, and that we are very well known for advanced manufacturing. And we've developed some of these portable training systems going out. And so that's been very effective, and we're looking at doing the same sort of thing with the mining industry and metallurgy as well, actually. And so I think trying to being intentional about the coordination. So Anita, I really like the coordination word, but I think just an intentionality to that, and it's tough to get that many stakeholders together. But at the university level, I would also say we have to rethink the way that we teach, and Anita, again, you mentioned curriculum a little bit. It's also attitude, when I go to a dean's conference, I'm the envy of all of my peers because our university has adopted to what our local students look like, because we do have to develop our workforce locally. 70% of my students are on Pell Grants and are working outside the university or within the university, earn money for not only themselves but their families. And I think, so I'm under no pressure. I've never had my president ask me, what's your 4-year graduation rate? We don't look at that because our students can only take 12 credits a semester and be successful when they're doing 20 and 30 hours worth of work outside of class. And so, I think we need to look at the whole system from an academic standpoint. And also, I think you heard today, in Pat's talk as well, how industry is becoming much more skills-oriented. And the universities are still teaching things the way we taught them in the 1800s, and the 1900s. And we're 3-credit-hour courses, and it's subject-based. And I think we need to look at that in being innovative with our curriculum and really getting out there and lighting that flame of curiosity as soon as possible.
Okay. So one last question before I open it up to the audience. We've heard the comment from Anita about how we are not using the example of gender, for example, how we are not attracting from all of the population, and mining certainly has that issue. What are some ideas or things you've seen that might be helpful for us? Why are we in that situation? What are some things that can help attract from a broader audience into this industry? You have a mic.
I got the mic, so I guess ownership is possession is ownership. There are lots of. It's a very complex question, needless to say, particularly given everything that's happening today. But in fact, you have right here 2 of the 27 universities that are both R1 and Hispanic serving in Arizona and UTEP, and so I think. University is kind of the way we look at it. And so our president, Heather Wilson, gave a talk on the Hill about this. And we've actually never had a diversity office at the University of Texas, El Paso, but we're 92% minority and 84% Hispanic because we look like our region, because we look like our community. And that's partially because of what I was talking about adapting the way we do our education to our community. But I think making sure that message is out there, that this is a friendly place. This is a place where you have freedom of pursuit of the different whatever discipline you're going into, and then making sure our disciplines all look welcoming. So while we don't teach mining, we have metallurgy, and I'm proud to say that well over 50% of our students in metallurgy are female. So while we have not had diversity offices, our university mission, which is open access to an excellent education, has enabled a lot of the things that other universities across Texas and across the country have tried to do with diversity offices. And I think that's just our mission, and our commitment to the region has really enabled us to do that.
So first and foremost, we're a community college, so we do focus on our community at hand, and we do have centuries old in our area stigma around the mining industry. So We, when I first started working for MAC and started working with our local mining companies, I very much did have that stigma in my head as well, that, the Mother Jones photos from back in the day, kids sitting in coal chutes and stuff like that. So when we think about trying to just pull in a more diverse student audience into these industries, we are focused on two major things, which have been mentioned here today, and that's, the new sustainability practices and then the technological advancements. So we're really just trying to work with our K-12 audience, and we also have a new group in our area. It's actually not new, it's just really keeps growing every year, but it's called the Industry and Education Partnership, and it does exactly what the title is. It brings industry and education together, but we also have a lot of our local legislators that participate, our local chambers of commerce, and we meet on a quarterly basis during the school year, and it's just really about getting those K-12 students interested in these careers, but also they're doing the things like taking the instructors into their environments so that they can see the types of equipment that they're working on and understand the environment, and they can share that and take that back to their students. We're also focused on those middle school students now, even more than the high school students. When we used to do our manufacturing and mining day, we would have juniors and seniors, right? Because everybody wants those people that are going into the workforce now, but we have reverted back to, going to middle school and having those students come in and start to get excited about these different careers. And we just really think that highlighting, again, the sustainability practices that the companies are implementing and the technology, the new automation and products that are, equipment that are popping up in these environments, introducing them to those things will really help get those students that are more purpose-driven and innovative interested in these roles.
Well, I'll mention a couple of things. First, I think our industry is really doing a great job in advancing a more flexible work-life balance, especially, some of our bigger kind of flagship companies. My husband works in the mining industry. I'm pretty jealous of his 4-day-a-week work schedule, and I see like family policies that are really progressive and very helpful to bring all sorts of people into the industry, and I think that makes a big difference. In terms of looking at outreach again, it's important that we're out in all the schools, that we're not just out in the schools in the little university bubble that tends to be highly educated. So that means that we should be down in Santa Cruz County and in Nogales and making sure that those students know they have this opportunity, not just the students in our university town who probably already know they have an opportunity to go to college. I think that that's really important. Most of the mining engineering departments are very well endowed with scholarships and can help students that need extra help, which is also important. And I'll reference a study that one of our faculty members is doing in concert with WIM. She was also working with MSHA. She lost the money from MSHA. Angelina Anani, who was long ago a student of Kwame's, but she is doing surveys and focus groups looking at why can't we retain the women that we get into the industry in the first place? Like, we get a few in, it's not enough, and then we lose a lot of them. And so she's really looking at why that is and what are the barriers and challenges so that she can publish that for companies. And I think that's very important as well.
Okay, thank you all. Now, any questions? I mean, I have a lot of questions, but okay, Jared. And if you don't mind, when you ask a question, introduce yourself briefly, your name, your organization, and then ask your question.
Thank you, Kwame. Jerry Pruitt with Missouri Geological Survey. And I've been at the survey for over 30 years, and we have done a lot of work in the STEM area, tried to get really engaged in that, working with MMEF, which was an education foundation on the industrial mineral sides of things. And it seemed to me that when we talked to the teachers, like the middle school and high school teachers, the thing that they really wanted to propel this was lesson plans. it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to put together lesson plans. But if we could figure out a way to really, working through AGI or some of the institutions or associations, if we can give them support to actually develop those and get those to the teachers, it seems to me that that might help to propel that STEM effort a little bit better. You give it to them and make it easy for them to actually teach. And I just wanted to ask if what your perspective is on that. If you're doing that, if you see that. Thank you.
I can speak to that a little bit with our teacher program. So the way that our teacher program works is it costs about $50,000 per cohort. We bring in about 30 teachers, and it's industry will fund each cohort. A company will take a cohort on. We bring them in for a week. We pay for their housing and their food. We give them a $1,000 stipend. And at the end of the week, they will have developed a lesson plan. They will have visited lots of minds, heard from speakers. They share the lesson plan back to us so that we can share it amongst the teacher networks that we have. We hope to do some national training, by the way, in the coming year in this way, but that way they leave with a lesson plan, and we have a collection of lesson plans that we can share. We also give them money to buy materials for whatever things they want to do in the classroom. And $50,000 isn't a lot. That's pretty good bang for your buck if you're hitting 30 teachers and if they even impact 1,000 students over the course of their career, which they'll probably impact a lot more. That's pretty good value, I think. But that's how we saw the same problem. They need some resources and they need time to make lesson plans, and then we need to be able to share them.
Correct me. Anyone here who knows this? Doesn't the Mineral Education Foundation have some teacher materials on their website too? So yes,
they do.
So there is some material for anyone here. If you go search Mineral Education Foundation, there is material for K through 12 on that website to share. So use it to share as well with your network. Any teacher who says the only reason they are not covering earth sciences and mining is because they don't have material, there's free material available online.
Yeah,
Can you have
thanks.
comment?
So actually, the Texas Minerals and Reclamation Association has actually worked with University of Arizona, and they've actually, this is a grassroots program through the mining industry, and they've been running summer camps for the last 2 or 3 summers for teachers. As I said, working with the University of Arizona to some extent and such, and that's something that we're really looking to pick up, particularly as Texas hasn't had a mining engineering program since 80 whatever when Texas A&M closed theirs. So we're really having to re-educate the entire population of Texas.
Yeah. And Mike Motes, I don't know if you care to comment about your teacher summer camp.
So we're doing something very similar to Craig. We do it in materials. We partner with ASM International, so they have trainers who come here. We have a cohort. They have a year 1, year 2 program. So you go to a year 1, and then the teachers can come to a year 2. We just hosted a year 2. We had 25, I think, and we had teachers from Puerto Rico to Colorado, Boston to Texas, mostly in the Midwest. But we pay for everything. They come, they learn all these demos, and a lessons plan. It costs us about $30,000, which we try to get corporate sponsorship for. So if you'd like to donate, I'll be in the back.
So, back to Anita's point, I think each individual school is doing something. How do we scale it up, and how do we get national coordination around this, right? Any other questions? Oh,
Michelle Foss, Rice University. So A&M is going to reopen the mining engineering program, I think. They're heading in that direction. A couple of questions. One I tried to ask here, actually for all of you. Do you go after all levels for the teacher programs? Are there some that are more effective than others? Elementary, secondary? So that's one question. Second question, at the University of Texas when I was there, we had a program called GeoForce. So the dilemma in all of this, especially in your communities, is preparation to enter even VOTEC, even technical education, even community colleges. So just basic, high school prep. And how much of that are you having to do in order to get kids ready for, additional training and capacity building? That's the second question. And then the third one is really tough. Sorry, I'm going to get them all on the table. The third one is really tough. It's more provocative. We've been dealing with industry perception issues for 50 years, all of my career, really. And there's no solution, really, because of the nature of the business. All of the extractive industries go through cycles. So we go through these periods where we look at enrollments, they're too low. We look at sustainability, it's too low. We don't know how we're going to staff up. And then, we go through periods where, clearly jobs are getting cut because of conditions, business conditions and other things. And I don't think there's any solution for this, but I wonder if there are any conversations about it. How do we do all the things that everybody's talking about doing at the national level, trying to collaborate, trying to build programs, given the fact that, these are very, very tough businesses when it comes to the markets they're in and price cycles, business conditions in general.
All right.
Let me divvy the about. So I think, Craig, you do number one with what's effective among the teacher education. Do you go for all of K, what levels are effective? I think Michelle, you can do the VOTEC one. And I'm going to tap on you as dean. I'll reframe the question a bit. I know the cycles. I think what shows up in the university with cycles is pressure for department chairs, when it comes to hiring decisions, all that in those low times and when enrollments are low, as opposed to when things are booming, we want to hire, we want to invest in those programs.
Now where we're trying to rebuild programs that got shut down because of...
Correct. So you can handle how universities are responding to that, and maybe how industry and other partners can help universities support these programs during the lean years. So Craig, you go first.
So we're targeting middle and high school science teachers for the most part. We will, if we have room, we'll let other teachers in. We just find that developing curriculum from elementary all the way through high school is tough in one cohort. So that's why we're looking at those. Can I talk just a little bit about preparation?
Sure, yeah.
So one of the things that we're seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing it in your engineering program too, is students are really struggling with math. And it's a effect of COVID. And it's even worse in areas where students are economically disadvantaged, right? They didn't have the help from their parents perhaps at home to teach them math. I mean, I tried to teach a fourth grader math. I have a PhD in engineering, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. So we're starting tutoring programs and additional support there to try and get them through the math that's needed for engineering, but I think that's a huge challenge as well, and it's not one that anybody thinks is really going to go away anytime soon just because COVID ended. So that's one of the preparation issues that we're seeing.
So I'm not exactly sure this answers your question number 2, but just to address kind of the preparation of students from like maybe the career and tech centers into community college and then into the workforce, we articulate credit for all of our career centers in our area. So we're not really trying to duplicate or replace what they're already doing, but try to build upon what they're already doing. So when they get to us, that they're just continuing on their technical education. And in some cases, they'll get some credit for prior learning and things like that. So I don't know if that...
Do you find that there are students that are interested in these but do not have the basic things necessary to be able to do the program?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in any of our programs, I think we come across that, and there those basic things like math are big things, measurement, basic hand tool knowledge, things like that. So we really, or the soft skills, leadership kind of things. So when those students are coming, they're really starting with those more foundational level things to get them prepared for the next topics.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and touch on the prep one before moving on to the fun question. Thank you, Kwame. So we are an economically underdeveloped area, and math skills are a problem. We have a robust articulation agreement with our community college. We have our early high school college courses, and that takes care of one portion of the population of our incoming students. But in fact, we have 70% of the students in engineering are not calc ready when they arrive. And I think, we are an open access university, and I always joke with people, what does that mean? Our admission test is actually a mirror, and we put it under the student's nose, and if it fogs, they're in. And we're going to facilitate the education. And so our university, because again, we don't have that 4-year pressure, we have a lot of developmental programs, developmental math, developmental English, that the students are able to take advantage of in this 5 or 6 year journey they're under. So a lot of that's changing that paradigm of the 4-year college. So there's still a lot of work to be done. I don't know when we're going to stop seeing the effect of COVID that Cray mentioned in terms of math or in terms of their social skills, to be honest with you. And I think so that all plays into it. And I think, again, as an open access university, we've been experiencing this for decades now. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve there in changing the way we do education. On to the question about the lean times. Yeah, everything's up and down. And Anita, you had mentioned how computer science is sailing, right? And for us, it quadrupled in the last 10 years, our computer science department. Well, it's starting to decline. And so I think an awful lot of how we have to look at the ups and downs is realize they're going to occur and be strategic with our planning and look at and assume that there are going to be ups and downs, and in the good times build what support we can. I think all of the mining engineering programs are pretty well supported by industry, a lot better than a lot of the other departments, but making sure that we don't go too high on the highs, and regulate that lows. And certainly at the college level, things are always going up and down. I mean, EE is going back up now. It hit an area where it was down for a while, but just realizing that's going to happen. And from the university standpoint, and Cray and I were talking about financial models and such at the universities, having a model that enables that strategic planning and allows us to understand at times there are going to be downs for all the fields, but we can regulate that. We can work. You talk about coordination. You talked about the interdisciplinary nature of mining engineering. Again, coming from biomedical engineering, that was very interdisciplinary as well. Well, there's a lot of cross-teaching we can do. So to soften that drop in enrollment or whatever, I think there's a lot we try to do internally. But like I said, an awful lot of it is the financial models at the universities, and that's been, for any of you who recognize the letters RCM in that order, it has been something that universities across the board are struggling with.
Any other questions? We have a few more minutes, and then we need to stop and do our first break, but we have some time for more questions.
So, Bo Mahaney, trustee here at the university. So to leverage my 36 years of Air Force experience, I've got a couple of comments or questions that I think you all will comment on. Number one is at every Air Force base, there is an education office, and usually an education center, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the size of the base, universities or even community college that are providing coursework, so that you don't have to drive all the way to a university, or you can do it do it online. So the concept then would be something that you mentioned for the Mineral Area College, is the idea that Doe Run should have a permanent placement. So the thing that I want to run by you for comment is it something that we could do in the future at some of the bigger mines to locate an education center and to provide that on site, not necessarily a traveling education concept, but a co-located concept. And then the other one from Air Force experience is definitely out of the box, but it goes like this. When I was the installation commander at March Air Force Base, which is in Riverside, California, we had a relationship with Hollywood. And you'll see it in the Marvel movies. You'll see Air Force aircraft, especially the mighty C-17, in those shows. So Jennifer Lawrence, as a mining engineer, just think about it. As far as getting this thing out there and this diversification and women saying, I could do that. She played Winter's Bone, which represented our southern Missouri climate. We can have her do a mineral mining type, showing all the autonomous things, but of course there has to be some big challenge, and of course she'll overcome it. And it'll empower women to go into the industry. I kid you not. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'm affiliated with Harvard Wood, which is a group of Harvard folks that are part of Hollywood, and we could make that happen.
So Pat, I think, are you ready to produce a Hollywood movie around Hermosa? So any comments on that? I mean, Michelle, so you already have some experience with the co-location of education. So any comment from any of the panelists?
So just when it comes to on-site training and what that looks like, Missouri has some incredible workforce development training incentives. And when we first were approached by Doe Run and this was years in the making as far as the training program. But when we were first approached by them, they wanted us to come to them, and we were like, wow, how are we going to monopolize our equipment? Do you have training space? Could you purchase equipment? And, these are huge investments for a company that already spends hundreds of thousands of dollars in training a year. And now we're looking at starting new extensive training programs. So with Missouri One Start, we approached them about doing a job retention training project. And this allowed them, $1.2 million to invest in training equipment on site to be able to help pay for the training that MAC is facilitating for them, along with a lot of other training that we just simply aren't able to do. But it also allowed them the opportunity to create a training facility at their West Fork location as well. So anyway, we are, it's almost like we're headed in that direction, and not just the Doe Run company, but some of our other companies that we have some extensive training programs with as well. But yeah, I mean, that would be a great thing to do. It is hard, obviously, to find the people that have the knowledge and the instructors that want to do those things. So that's always, I always say when my one senior instructor retires, I'm going to have to retire with him because, he's just irreplaceable. So anyway, anybody? Sure.
Sure.
So the instructor issue, you've got pilots, maintenance personnel who do Air Force stuff by day, and then in the evening they show up at the education center and teach the subjects there. So you can leverage the working community as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
No, I think it's a really good point. And, we actually have Fort Bliss in our backyard. And so we do quite a bit of work with the 1st Armored Division there, particularly around advanced manufacturing. So I think it is possible. But I think it speaks even more generally to thinking about our education system, that we are becoming more skills-based. So you're hearing a lot more about certificate degrees and stackable degrees and things like that. And I think that's the way industry is, the way industry is moving. That's the kind of support they're really looking for at this point. I mean, we have Blue Origin up the road, and if they have a launch in January, they don't care if the employee has a PhD or not, if they can solve that problem. And I think that's the sort of, that's exactly the direction I think we as the educational leaders have to be looking at to respond to industry at the speed industry needs the response.
Any other questions? Oh, back there.
Thanks. My name's Ross Connor. Question I've got for you is I haven't heard much about AI. And to me, that's the big juggernaut that's sitting out there right now. We've got effectively an arms race in the chip business between China and the West. And the rate that AI is learning large language models is accelerating daily. I see that as completely changing the employment workforce, and hence in changing education, and perhaps within the very near future. How are you considering that and what you're doing?
That's a great question. one thing we've done is we hired a faculty member. She's an electrical engineer with experience in mining to specifically teach AI and machine learning and mining to our students. And we're really working to thread it throughout our curriculum. But one thing, and I stole this from a colleague at Rio Tinto, I'll say that first, but my vision is really that we graduate students who have decision intelligence. So they have to learn not just how to use AI, but how to understand what AI has done for them and make good decisions with it. And anybody who's used ChatGPT knows that it doesn't always give you what you need, right? So I really want to marry that kind of experiential and skills-based learning that Ken has talked about with AI so that our students leave and they can make good decisions. Because more and more in a mining operation, there's so much data coming at everyone, from the lowest level person to the CEO, that they've got to be able to rapidly synthesize that data and make a decision that's going to impact worker safety, community health, and they make multiple decisions like that a day. So I think AI is critical to that, and we've got to weave it throughout our curriculum. It can't just be one class in AI.
So it is a really good question. It's something I think everybody is struggling with right now. You know, the way I heard it described one time was, okay, when our students get there, come in, they know AI is there, but we still need to teach them the basic skills. And then by the time they graduate, as Craig was saying, industry wants them to be able to make those decisions, to be able to use those AI tools. And that's a difficult transition to figure out how to do, right? And at UTEP, we actually have a university-level AI institute that was set up that looks at AI in terms of operations of the university, in terms of education, also in terms of research. And I think education across the board is looking at that and trying to figure it out. But as you point out, the world is changing really quickly, and trying to integrate that into our curriculum and updating our curriculum. I've got one department that in 3 of their classes forces the students to use AI for every assignment, and then describe how they've used it, what the input was, and things like that. So there are a lot of different models out there that, and I don't think we've cracked that yet, not fully yet, for sure.
Yeah. And I would say, Ross, for sure, higher education is talking about AI everywhere. Mike is a department chair. I know our dean, who was here earlier, came from a dean's conference, and we had a lot of discussion because it is changing how we will teach, and it will change our students and how our students interact. So yeah, it's a big discussion. Okay, last question for you guys as we wrap up. So when we wrap this up, we'll take a break and we'll come back and do discussion, breakout discussions, where we would use you to collect all the data or ideas for our report to NSF. When we go into those discussions, what are the things that you want people to be talking about? What are some things that you want the groups to be focused on in our discussions?
Well, real quickly, I have a T-shirt I should have worn today, and it's a tic-tac-toe board, right? And it's X's and O's, and then there's an O way over here, and they go tic-tac-toe off the board. Think outside the box. You know, we've got to figure out how to break the paradigms out there, and whether we're talking educational, whether we're talking training and such, but just think broadly, and no idea is too crazy at this point in time. Let's bring all the ideas out and to try to solve the big problems whatever big problem you're looking at.
I talked about funding sources a couple of times, and I'm always amazed by the companies that I work with, especially when I'm having first contact with them, that they aren't aware of some of the funding sources out there, the workforce development grants and things like that can help them train and upskill their employees. But also, you know, when I'm partnering with other colleges, universities and stuff, just finding out from them some of the resources that they use as well. So I would just say explore those things. You know, there are other people in here from other states that maybe have different workforce initiatives in their area. So, you know, talk about those things and see what resources might be available out there for you and your organization.
I mean, I think one thing to think about is that this field is highly hands-on. You know, we need to be doing things experientially. And while commodities are high and things are going well, we really need to develop facilities. And we need to develop facilities all around the country with that differentiate from each other. So Missouri should have something different than what I have at Arizona. And they should really be facilities where we can send workforce to train, where we can do research, where we can train BS, PhD students, where we can do everything at these facilities and have satellites, because the best companies like South 32, and you know, you were talking about Doe Run, they want you in their community. They don't want to say, oh, they've got this over in Tucson. So I think really we have to develop portable or satellite training and research opportunities so that we're out in the communities where these mines are. Because Pat is right, the community has to see some mutual benefit to want these projects and to want us there.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much for this discussion. Let's thank our panelists.